those stories tonight, January 12, 1996, after this brief message.
Tonight, Hillary Clinton under siege. This week, the spotlight was supposed to be on her important new book about the condition of children in America, and we will talk about that a bit later. But there's now an avalanche of serious charges and sharp criticism of the First Lady, who has been called a congenital liar by a columnist, her credibility and integrity on the line. And yet many Americans don't understand the fuss. What has she done, if anything, that's illegal? Has she been telling the truth? Well,
Discovered a paper trail that has led even some Clinton loyalists to wonder, is Hillary Clinton a liability to the president?
Sit down and to lie, isn't she? Here we're going to see Hillary as the narcissist that she always was. Here we're going to see the little facial expressions and wry smile that she has always carried about her. You ready to hear more lies from Hillary? Because we've certainly heard enough. Here we go, Hillary, let's go. 20 years ago, still trying to cover your ass. People still were calling you out as a liar 20 years ago. Right, let's watch some more of it. Let's see how she responds to this.
Seemingly unruffled by this week's storm of controversy. She'd read the accusations that she was inconsistent, or worse, a liar, and she was ready to sit down and reply. Mrs. Clinton, instead of your new book being the issue, you have become the issue. How did you get in this mess where your whole credibility is being questioned?
Oh, I ask myself that every day, Barbara, because it's very surprising and confusing to me. But we've had questions raised for the last 4 years, and eventually they're answered, and they go away, and more questions come up, and we'll just keep doing our best to answer them, and hopefully it'll end at some point.
Are you distressed?
Okay. You know, I have a pretty good arm. If I'd thrown a lamp at somebody, I think you would have known about it. And, you know, when those things are said, I just don't want that to get a life of its own.
So you wanted the situation controlled, or use your words?
Well, I wanted, for example, the Secret Service to be able to say that didn't happen.
Did they?
Oh, yes. I mean, those stories stopped.
Did you ever throw a lamp at your husband?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever throw a Bible at your husband?
So Hillary was involved in a scandal involving taxpayers' money 20 years ago, and it was already in the millions. $60 million of taxpayers' money fucking wasted. Surely she wouldn't be trusted again. Surely she'd never get a seat in the Senate. Surely she'd never become Secretary of State or even run for president. Here we go, Hillary. Here we go.
Question of Madison Guarantee, a failed savings and loan that regulators say financed shady real estate deals. The bank's failure cost taxpayers $60 million. Hillary Clinton was what her law firm called the billing partner for the Madison account. There is a dispute as to how much work you did for the Madison Guarantee. You have said it was minimal. Investigators say you had a more involved relationship. Mrs. Clinton, I think most people don't understand it. They don't care how much you billed or how much money you made. But what they do think is, were you aware of any shady practices or actual wrongdoing on the part of this savings and loan for which you did legal work?
Absolutely not.
You did not know?
Absolutely
Even
not.
in their real estate deals?
No, absolutely not. And in fact, this whole matter originated because of this Whitewater land deal. And we said when that came up that this was a failed real estate transaction about 20 years ago now, where we lost money, and people said, well, prove it. So we
have the saddest, one of the saddest parts anyway of Hillary's legacy. A guy called Vince Foster who killed himself several days after being in a meeting in front of very high people of very high position of power and inside the White House. This meeting was inside the White House, and during it, federal investigators have said that and have found the evidence of Hillary talking down to this bloke, saying, "You have failed us as in your job. You've totally failed us." And days later, he killed himself. This nice, normal bloke, as is described. But she ridiculed him mercilessly in front of his peers. And former FBI agents have said this. And basically, a big report. Anyway, he's believed to have shot himself with a revolver in the back of the head. It is a bit funny. And all records, basically a 38,000 word report was created by an investigator, which went into all these weird, bizarre ways that he could have, reasons that could have led to his death, right? Lots of them. And not one word was mentioned on Hillary Clinton, even though days before she had kind of triggered his suicide by embarrassing him and humiliating him in front of everyone at the White House. It doesn't make sense. Lots of records were lost. Hillary's role in his death was completely absent. There was absolutely nothing about her involving it. It's just another instance of, no, there were 7.5 million pages. 7.5 million pages generated by the investigation, and not one thing was mentioned about Hillary, even though he knew her. And a hard drive was gone. A hard drive was missing. This is all recorded news. It was a while ago now. But it was another thing that Hillary's just waved off into the distance. Just waved off with a smile, said it was a mistake. She has nothing to do with it. But basically, Foster, the guy who died, didn't like what was going on. He was basically saying that Hillary's new healthcare plan, particularly for children, wasn't going to work. It wasn't feasible. And it looks like, yeah, he was got rid of. Okay, let's see how she talks back with us.
While we are clearing up rumors, you know there is the reoccurring rumor about you and Vince Foster. What was your relationship with him?
Oh, he was one of my dearest friends, Barbara. He was a colleague, he was a partner. He'd been a friend of my husband's since they were boys of 4 or 5 years of age, and I miss him. I miss him very much, and I just wish he could be left in peace, because he was a wonderful man to everyone who knew him.
You know, there is then this whole business after his suicide of whether you tried to have records removed or have them examined before.
Very clear about this.
Okay.
There were no documents taken out of Vince Foster's office on the night he died, and I did not direct anyone to interfere in any investigation. I know very well what we were talking about. We were grieving, we were supporting each other. I was asking questions about how other people who were close friends and colleagues of Vince were doing, how his family was doing, and some of those phone conversations consisted of us sobbing on the phone.
And nothing was taken from Vince Foster's office that you asked to have looked over, kept from the eyes of the
I didn't even know
government?
he had documents of mine in his office, so that doesn't make any sense at all.
You know, on the one hand, the fact that these two records, the billing records and the travel memo come up this week is certainly not something you could have wanted when you're trying to publicize a book,
That's
right?
right, absolutely.
Although Senator D'Amato said, implies that they were going to be found anyway, and that's why you had to release them. But the White House is not Grandma's attic, and for 2 years people have been looking for these records. They were in your personal effects. I mean, one wonders why they were just found now.
Well,